follow-up to my last video, which is all about how to do a 3-day fast in a safe and healthy way. In that video, I tried to answer all of your guys' questions from Instagram, but the video ended up being 45 minutes long, and I didn't want to subject anyone to that. So I ended up cutting out like the big Q&A portion, but they were such good questions that I wanted to make sure I posted them. So here we are. There are also a few other tiny little snippets that I cut out that I also thought should be included, so that will be in here as well. Before we get into all of the questions and information about fasting, I want to give you guys a quick little PSA because this is super exciting. The workout program that I currently do, which is MAPS Anabolic from Mind Pump, is 50% off for the rest of July. So if you're watching this at the time the video is uploaded, you have like the rest of the month to get the program 50% off. Plus, if you use my discount code, which is Fit and Nerdy, you get an extra 10% off. The program is usually like $120 and you get it for like $52. The program is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Obviously, I'm doing it, so I wouldn't be doing a program that I wouldn't highly recommend. It's a super foundational lifting program, and it's fantastic for anyone who's either just starting or has been lifting for 10 years. I just finished going through it for the first time, and I'm starting it over again because I enjoyed it so much and noticed such incredible strength gains that I just really want to do it again. And I genuinely think this is a program that everyone should own, so take advantage of the sale. And if you're watching this after July, my discount code is still good, so feel free to apply. Before we get into all of your guys' amazing questions, please give this video a big thumbs up because it really does support me and my channel, and I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. And let's get to some questions. Yeah. The first question is, how do you approach fasting with a healthy mindset? And this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. The fact that you think about asking it means that you're at least somewhat in the right headspace to begin to start thinking about fasting. My biggest tip for this is to educate yourself. Learn and make sure you really understand why that most of the weight lost while you're fasting is water weight, so that when you're done and you're like, oh my god, the scale dropped significantly, I want to keep fasting forever, you can check yourself and remind yourself that most of that is water weight, and you're gonna go back up in weight over the course of the next few days when you reintroduce carbs. Focus on learning about the health benefits and keep that in mind as you're fasting. And then make sure as you go through your fast that you check yourself mentally. Are you starting to enjoy the control that you have over your body? Are you starting to think, oh, I'm seeing a bunch of results, I should do this more frequently? Or are you starting to like compete with your body and see how far you can push yourself? If you start to have any thought that would indicate that your relationship with fasting is degrading, make sure you sit down and think about it and correct yourself in your head. This next question is from my lovely roommate. She wanted to know how you get through the hangry and does it get better after a certain amount of time. I personally don't really get hangry, and I think that's because I eat a much higher fat diet, lower carb diet, so I don't have that huge carb crash. That being said, just a few minutes ago I was thinking to myself, you know, I could really go for some food right now. I'm really genuinely hungry. And I think the way that I get through it is, first of all, to just remind myself why I'm doing this, what the benefits are, and what I'm gonna get out of this in the long run. And then also the fact that 3 days really is not a long time. If I can go 3 days without peanut M&Ms, I can go 3 days without food. Next question is, how much water do you drink and how much water do you drink normally? So the amount of water that you're drinking when you're fasting should not be any more than you would normally drink. Essentially, just drink when you're thirsty, and actually be careful to not drink too much. Don't replace the food with water, because then you can majorly overhydrate yourself, lose a lot of electrolytes, and then that's a bad time. So on a normal day, I would usually drink about one of these things and maybe a little bit more. So my goal while I'm fasting is to finish about one of these per day. It has been extremely hot yesterday and today though, so I think I've been drinking just a little bit more. Like in general, in regular life, even when you're not fasting, you really only need to drink when you're thirsty, and you only need to drink enough to replenish the water that you lose through excretion and sweating. The next few questions are about who should and should not do a fast. So the first one is, would you recommend this to someone that is 17 years old? If you're a 17-year-old female, you're most likely done growing. Health-wise, this would probably be okay as long as, you know, you meet all the other requirements I talked about earlier. But as far as the mental aspect of this goes, I would probably not recommend it unless you know that you have a really, really solid relationship with food, with health, with your body, and with exercise. It's so much easier to fall into traps in high school where you start comparing yourself to other people and start wanting to do other things to make yourself look a certain way. And being in that environment when everyone's constantly comparing themselves to others could make it really easy for this to turn really bad really quickly. So you know yourself better than I do. You know if you can really handle this, but overall in general, I'd say it's probably not the best idea. Next, what would this do for someone who doesn't have good eating habits? For example, eating a lot of junk, eating too much, not eating enough, micro, macronutrients, etc. Locking in your diet and your exercise is gonna help you insanely more than doing a 3-day fast. If, for example, achieving your health and fitness goals takes 100 points, you will earn 95 to 98 points simply by locking down your diet and your exercise. So getting rid of the junk food, eating the right amount that is right for your body, and making sure all of those foods are nutrient dense, that's gonna help you so much more than fasting for 3 days. The fasting for 3 days would get you maybe like half a point. And that's why I don't generally recommend this to people who aren't already healthy and fit and have their diet and exercise and sleep and stress locked down, because you will see so much more benefit from doing those things than doing a fast. Next one, is this okay to do if you've had an unhealthy relationship with food but have never had an eating disorder? This one's really tricky, and I think you're gonna honestly have to do just a lot of soul searching to figure out if you think that you are ready to do this. There were a few times in my past when I started slowly sliding down a slope into a bad relationship with food, and I was able to recognize that and pull myself out. There was one time that it was pretty difficult for me to do that, but I was able to do that, and now I'm at a point where I can do this and not want to starve myself continually when I'm done. So if you're at all worried about it and you want to be safe, I'd recommend working your way up. Start with regular 16-hour fasts and see how that affects you mentally, and then maybe try a 24-hour fast and then a 48-hour fast. If by the end of the 48-hour fast you're thinking, oh my god, I should keep fasting forever because look at how great I look, then stop. Don't keep fasting. Just focus on fixing your relationship with food. Okay, next few questions are kind of about how fasting affects the body and fat and the metabolism. So this first one is about water weight. The question is, so during a fast, one would probably lose some water weight. If so, how much weight can one expect to gain back? And how would one combat gaining back too much? So yes, most of the weight you lose during a fast is water weight. Carbs are essentially what cause the body to store water. So when you stop eating carbs, your body just kind of flushes out all that excess water that it was holding on to. And this is not something that you can prevent gaining back unless you go keto afterwards and continue to not consume carbs. But it's also something that you should not worry about gaining back, because how much water your body is retaining really has no impact on your health unless you're obviously retaining like too much water for whatever reason. Human bodies just retain water. That's what they do. You shouldn't be trying to maintain your weight loss through water weight. And then the second part of the question I'm going to answer in conjunction with another question, which was, is there any possible way that you could lose body fat on a 3-day fast? So when you're fasting, most of the weight lost is water weight because you're not consuming carbs, but you are also in a caloric deficit. You will lose physical body weight. Some of that's going to come from fat. Some of that is going to come from muscle and other tissues. It's going to essentially be the same as if you were in a regular caloric deficit and still eating. You're just in a much bigger caloric deficit. So for me, I'm probably burning about 1,500 calories a day because I'm not exercising and I'm just kind of walking and mostly being sedentary. So over the course of 3 days, that is a 4,500 calorie deficit. If there's 3,500 calories in a pound, that means I should lose approximately 1.3 pounds of body mass. Some of that, yes, will come from body fat, but some of it will also ruin some of my gains. But I'm also not worried about ruining the gains, because when you take a break from eating and from eating protein, your body becomes resensitized to it and it becomes easier to actually build muscle post-fast. So then I have 2 questions about fasting affecting your metabolism. One person wanted to know if it can permanently affect your metabolism, and someone else asked if it can increase your metabolic rate. So long term, doing a 3-day fast is a tiny little blink in your lifespan and won't permanently change anything. Our metabolisms are super malleable. It takes years to cause severe metabolic damage. Doing a 3-day fast isn't going to negatively impact your metabolism like a week later. And then as far as increasing your metabolism goes, there actually is some research that indicates that this might be the case. I have an article that I'll link down in the description, but essentially once you start fasting, when your body starts burning fat, it pulls the exact number of calories that it needs from your fat stores. So once you get into ketosis, your body is literally being fueled with exactly the number of calories that it needs, because anytime that it needs fuel, it can just take it from your body fat. Okay, just a few more questions because I'm sweating to death. My room is like a sauna and I just want to go outside and get my walk in. How often do you think it's healthy or beneficial to do a 3-day fast? If you're not doing it in a medically supervised way, I would recommend doing it once a month or less frequently. And then no one actually asked this question specifically on my Instagram post, but I get this question a lot outside of that. People want to know if you can take medication and multivitamins and what to do about that. As far as medications go, this is something that you should talk to your doctor about. If it's a medication that you can get away with not taking for 3 days, then do it. If you need food with your medication but still want to fast, pick things that are super high in fat and low in everything else. So cream or avocado or chia seeds or some sort of oil, something that if it does have carbs also has a lot of fiber so that it just goes through your system, and have the minimal amount possible to still be able to take your medication effectively. And then as far as multivitamins go, you can survive for 3 days without a multivitamin. Just make sure you're eating super nutritionally dense foods before and after your fast. You'll have plenty of nutrition. Also, why are you taking a multivitamin. You probably don't need one unless you've been tested for all of your levels in vitamins and minerals and you're deficient in everything. If you're not deficient in everything, you should just be supplementing with the things that you're deficient in. Okay, last thing that I want to talk about. On my last video, I kind of set myself up for this because I posted it during the month of Ramadan, but I had so many people commenting telling me that I was doing fasting wrong because I wasn't following the protocol that you follow for Ramadan. So I just want to say this really quick before I have a bunch of people telling me the same thing again. There are many different ways to fast and many different reasons behind it and many different benefits from the different ways of fasting. The way that I'm fasting now, drinking only water for 3 days, means that I will achieve autophagy. When you fast for Ramadan, you're actually eating twice a day, and so the span of time when you're not eating, which is the fast, is never more than like 16 hours because you eat before the sun rises and after the sun sets. So you won't achieve autophagy when you're fasting for Ramadan, but you will probably improve your insulin sensitivity. You'll also get all of the awesome spiritual benefits, and there's a chance it could improve your relationship with food because it'll teach you what real hunger feels like. And then on the subject of Ramadan, it's actually a really cool example of how when there's a tradition that's ingrained in multiple very old cultures from around the world, that it tends to be something that's actually really healthy. These things that are so prevalent that were born out of religious or social practices are usually still around because they actually provide some benefit. You see fasting in so many different cultures and religions around the world. Another example is prayer before eating. And it does kind of sound like a super religious thing, but if you do it properly, it teaches you mindfulness about your food, and that is such an amazing skill to have in life. Anyway, I can get off my little soapbox now and go for a walk so that I can hopefully cool down a little bit and stop sweating because I am really gross right now. Isn't that fascinating? This next clip is just a tiny little nugget of information, but I wanted to put it back in this video because I find it fascinating, and if you're a nerd like me, I'm sure you will too. One of the systems of the body that is most affected by autophagy is the immune system. According to Dr. Walter Longo, who is one of the people in the forefront of the fasting conversation, fasting can reduce your white blood cell count by up to 40% while you're fasting, and that by itself would not be ideal. But after the fast, when you refeed, your body rebuilds those white blood cells, and so you come out with a stronger, regenerated, reborn immune system. This last little bit that I took out of the video is in the context of what you can and can't consume while you're fasting, depending on what your goal is from the fast. These are just 2 examples of things that people ask about all of the time. If you want my full set of rules and discussion of what is and is not okay depending on what you're fasting for, do make sure you go watch my last video, how to do a 3-day fast. So from Instagram, I got a question about drinking Coke Zero because it has no sugar and no calories. For all 3 of these, I would say no because of the reasons I described earlier. It's either substituting a craving, or it could potentially spike insulin, or it almost definitely would stop the autophagy process. I also got a question about the mushroom coffee mix from Four Sigmatic. I see you. I feel you. I love that stuff. It's totally fine to consume it during a 16-hour fast as long as you aren't drinking a ton of it and having a ton of caffeine, because caffeine is a stimulant and thus it can actually stimulate the release of cortisol, which would stimulate the release of insulin, which would negate the insulin sensitizing effects of the fasting. But if you usually drink like 600 milligrams of caffeine a day, 50 milligrams of caffeine during your fast is gonna be fun. So if you're doing a prolonged fast, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days to achieve insulin sensitivity, then a little bit of the Four Sigmatic mushroom coffee might be totally fine, but if you're trying to achieve autophagy, get rid of it. Don't get rid of it, just save it for when you're done with your fast because it's great. And that's it. I hope that answered some of the questions that you may have been left with at the end of my last video. Thank you so much to everyone who asked me a question on Instagram. I really appreciate the participation. If you have any other questions about doing a 3-day fast that I haven't covered in my last 2 videos about fasting, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. Don't forget to go get the best workout program ever, super discounted by the end of this month. Please like this video. If you liked it, share it with your friends and your family and your neighbors and your fasting buddies. Subscribe for more videos, hit the notification button so you don't miss the future videos, and I will see ya very soon. Bye!